Humans bled the invading Sele dry, staining the battlefield a glistening crimson as soldiers disemboweled the scaly alien warriors. The invasion started a full 2 years before, with the Sele armada turning vast swaths of Earth into molten slag, striking from the skies. The human resistance organized quickly, guerrilla warfare launching in every corner of the scorched globe. The Sele were advanced, but the humans fought smart and savage, wearing down the impatient reptilian attackers. Jeffrey Brown's wrist reticle flashed up coordinates. He set his atmospheric fighter on a steep angle, blazing through the thermosphere down to the dusty, rocky Sele homeworld. The Resistance got its hands on alien fold technology 8 months in, but the turnabout invasion hinged on intelligence gathered over the campaign vulnerabilities and soft targets to bleed the bastards. The nav beacon chirped. Stealth tech engaged. The craft drifted through craggy peaks, settling near a vaulted chamber nestled in the mountainside. The fighter's hatch popped with a hiss, and Jeffrey lumbered onto the alien soil, grav boots crunching in dirt. He flexed in his composite armor, checked his Omni-tool loadout, plasma rifle, explosive charges, flash frag, nano-poison, locked and loaded to raise hell. "The last invader turns conqueror," a raspy voice buzzed. Jeffrey whirled to find 6 Sele warriors training particle rifles at his skull. The lead alien in ornate black armor stomped forward. "Commander Marek." "Your journey ends here, monkey. Sele kill you now." "Commander Marek, your boys won't win this. We cracked your StratGrid mainframe." Jeffrey tapped his wrist, projecting a hollow of Sele's tactical network, a virus already spreading and shutting down systems. "Shut down your relays, recall your fleets from Earth, and I give you the kill switch." The aliens bristled, grip tightening on rifles. Marek shook with rage, clearly wanting to fire. "Your call. Kill me. The tactical virus sends your defenses haywire and you'll find nukes up your ass by dinner time. I'll give you the antivirus in exchange for calling off hostilities." Marek growled, inner eyelids blinking in thought. "Agreed for now, but humanity will pay for your insolence one day. Sele will return to finish Earth." Jeffrey just chuckled. "Sele fucked around and found out, Scales. You'll regret it if you're ever dumb enough to come knocking on humanity's door again." Jeffrey marched through the streets of the Sele capital, feet clanking on the alien metal. Marek kept a close eye on the human, particle rifle at the ready. The capital's architecture was all sleek lines and harsh angles, with tech integrated into every surface. Strange alien script glowed from holographic signs. Non-military Sele citizens, smaller than the warriors, scurried out of the procession's path. They entered a grand domed structure, the seat of Sele's planetary government. The High Council chamber had a vaulted obsidian ceiling. Marek shoved Jeffrey to the center of the amphitheater, before a raised crescent table where a dozen Sele leaders sat. "The human will now uphold his end of our agreement," Marek barked. "Present your world's technology." Jeffrey tapped at his wrist computer, pulling up schematics and equations. As he wirelessly interfaced with the Council's systems to project the files, lines of code streamed across his HUD. His decryption program penetrated their network's firewalls in seconds. Intel flooded in, detailing Sele military movements, communication frequencies, and planetary defenses. But then he found something else. Centuries of reconnaissance data on Earth, with detailed analyses of humanity's weaknesses, invasion plans, with death tolls in the billions. The Sele had always intended on conquering the human race. This incursion was just the first phase. Jeffrey wrapped up his tech presentation, mind-racing. He had to stop this. He needed access to Sele systems to tear apart their invasion infrastructure. An idea formed. "Your soldiers are used to your own tech. Let me work with your engineers and scientists," Jeffrey said. "Integrate human systems into your military. Get an edge." Marek's eyes narrowed. The council murmured to each other in their hissing language. "Very well," Marek finally said, "but you will be watched." Soon Jeffrey was deep in Sele military labs, writing code alongside reptilian technicians. At every terminal he discreetly uploaded worms to propagate through systems, planting logic bombs on trigger. Power plants would overload, Targeting computers would misfire. Factories would produce faulty armor, all subtle, all untraceable. But undermining Soleil invasion efforts might not be enough. He needed to make them question the war. As he worked, he spoke to the Soleil engineers. Why expand to Earth? Why conquer humans? You have enough worlds. Some ignored him. Others paused as if mulling over his questions. A few pulled him aside. Not all Soleil agree with war. But to defy the Council is death. You give us a way to resist. Jeffrey realized he had allies here. The Soleil weren't a monolith. If he kept pushing, humanity might gain supporters to stop this war from the inside. Merrick slammed his scaly fist on the console. The Soleil commander leaned close to Jeffrey, teeth bared. You've been undermining our systems this whole time, human. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Your sabotage ends now. Jeffrey met Merrick's glare, unflinching. He knew he had to play this carefully. His cover was blown, but maybe he could still turn this around. Merrick, listen to me. I've seen your invasion plans. Attacking Earth would be the biggest mistake of your life. And why is that? You think your primitive species can stand against the might of the Soleil Armada? Merrick hissed. We're a hell of a lot tougher than you think. Humans have been through more shit than you can imagine. Wars that lasted decades, plagues that wiped out millions, disasters that leveled cities. But we always come back stronger. Jeffrey pulled up historical records on the console, showing images of humanity's darkest moments and greatest triumphs. So you see this? World War II. We fought each other with weapons that could level mountains, but we picked ourselves up and rebuilt. The Cold War, when we had enough nukes to scorch the planet 100 times over. We pulled back from the brink. Natural disasters, famines, pandemics. We survived them all. Adapted and innovated our way out of every crisis. Merrick's eyes narrowed as he scanned the records. Resilient, perhaps, but still inferior to Soleil technology and numbers. Numbers don't mean shit if you can't break our spirit. And that's something you'll never do. Push us to the brink and we'll fight tooth and nail for every inch, every human a guerrilla warrior. Your occupation would be a living hell. The Soleil commander was silent for a long moment. Jeffrey could see the gears turning behind those reptilian eyes. Your words. Give me pause, human. The Council has always spoken of your kind as weak, easily conquered, but perhaps... Suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. Merrick whipped his head around to the security feeds. Jeffrey saw armed Soleil storming the streets, firing on military installations. Civilians fled in panic. Rebels, Merrick snarled. You're doing, human? Jeffrey shook his head, genuine surprise on his face. No, but it looks like I'm not the only one sick of this warmongering. Explosions rocked the compound. Merrick barked orders into his comm unit, mandibles clicking furiously. He turned to Jeffrey, eyes hard. It seems we have a common enemy for now. Neither of us wants to see the Soleil tear ourselves apart. Jeffrey nodded. Truce then, until this rebellion is dealt with. After that, I guess we'll see where we stand. Merrick tossed Jeffrey a plasma rifle. The human caught it, checking the charge. The two soldiers, Soleil and human, raced out to face the oncoming horde, ready to forge a new future in the heat of battle. As plasma bolts sizzled through the air, and rebel Soleil clashed with loyalist forces in the streets below, Jeffrey and Merrick sprinted through the corridors of the Orbital Defense Control Center. Alarms blared, bathing the sleek black walls in pulsing red light. They skidded to a halt at a reinforced blast door, a dozen Soleil extremists taking up defensive positions. Particle rifles whined as they powered up. Hold them off, Jeffrey growled, slamming a breaching charge on the door controls. He tapped furiously at his wrist computer, hacking past firewalls. Merrick roared, his own rifle spitting plasma. Two extremists fell, smoking holes in their armor. The Soleil commander slammed into cover beside Jeffrey as return fire filled the air with deadly light. Hurry, human, Merrick snarled, scales rippling as a near-miss flash-boiled the wall by his head. The charge beeped. Jeffrey grimaced. Almost there. The door shrieked open. Jeffrey and Merrick dove through, rolling and bringing rifles to bear. The command center was a circular room dominated by a holographic tactical display of Selei's defenses and the rebel forces. General Zaran stood at the center, clawed hands gripping the display. His black eyes glittered with malice. Ah, the human and the traitor. "It's over, Zaran," Jeffrey called, rifle trained on the general's chest. "Call off the attack." "You're too late." Zaran stabbed a button. The display lit up with dozens of red targeting reticles settling over rebel positions. "I will purge the dissenters and lead the Selei to a new age of glory." "Destroying our own kind will only lead to ruin," Marek said, stepping forward. "End this madness, Zaran. The path of conquest and subjugation is not the way." Zaran snarled, "You've grown soft, Marek. The human has poisoned your mind with weakness." Jeffrey edged toward a console, hoping to hack the defense grid. He just needed to keep Zaran talking. "Strength comes in many forms, Zaran. Humans and Selei are different, but we don't have to be enemies." "Please," Zaran roared. His claws flew over the controls, symbols flashed red. "You've forced my hand. If I can't have a unified Selei, I will leave only ashes." The display shifted, a pulsing red sphere appearing at the center. Jeffrey's blood ran cold. A doomsday device, buried in the planet's core. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to find any ship and flee. But he looked at Marek, saw the resolve in the Selei's eyes. Millions of lives hung in the balance, human and Selei alike. They had to stop this together. Jeffrey and Marek charged forward, a rebel's war cry and a soldier's oath mingling as they brought the fight to Zaran. The fate of two worlds would be decided here, in the crucible of battle and the courage to forge a new path. The rogue general's claws danced across the control panel, a manic glint in his obsidian eyes. "You fools think you can stop me. With a single command, I will ignite the core and rain fire upon the unworthy." Jeffrey lunged, a human blur of combat armor and determination. He lashed out, armored fist cracking across Zaran's jaw. The Selei staggered back, spitting blood. Marek pressed the attack, a plasma bolt searing the controls. Sparks flew, the acrid stench of melted circuits filling the air. The doomsday countdown flickered, but continued its relentless march. Jeffrey and Marek fought as one, human and Selei united against a common foe. They drove Zaran back from the console with a relentless barrage of blows. The general's scales cracked, ichor oozing from a dozen wounds. But Zaran was a veteran of countless campaigns, a master of the art of war. He countered with vicious swipes of razor claws, his tail lashing out like a whip. Jeffrey grunted as a strike threw him across the room, his armor sparking. Marek roared in pain as Zaran's claws found a gap in his battleplate, scoring deep gashes across his chest. The Selei commander staggered, blood seeping between his fingers. Jeffrey pulled himself to his feet, shaking off the ringing in his skull. His eyes locked on the countdown. 30 seconds to planetary annihilation. He had to end this now. The human charged, a primal battle cry tearing from his throat. He crashed into Zaran, the impact sending them tumbling across the deck. They grappled, rolling and punching, a tangle of human ingenuity and Selei ferocity. Jeffrey managed to wrap his arms around Zaran's neck, servos in his armor whining as he squeezed. The general thrashed and clawed, his struggles growing weaker. 15 seconds. With a burst of desperate strength, Jeffrey hauled Zaran off the floor and slammed him headfirst into the console. The display cracked, raining sparks and shattered glass. Zaran went limp, his skull crushed. 10 seconds. Marek dragged himself to the console, blood pooling at his feet. With shaking hands, he input the override codes, his claws dancing across the keys. 5 seconds. The countdown halted, the holographic numbers blinking out. Jeffrey and Marek collapsed against the ruined console, exhaustion and relief flooding through them. They had done it. The doomsday device was disarmed. The Selei homeworld and countless lives were saved. But even as they savored this hard-fought victory, they knew their work was far from over. The road to lasting peace between humanity and the Selei would be long and fraught with challenges. Prejudices and animosities ran deep on both sides. Yet in that moment, a human and a Sele, forged in the crucible of war, looked to the future with hope. They had seen firsthand that their two races were capable of so much more than hatred and violence. Together, they would build a new era of understanding and cooperation, a beacon of light in a galaxy too often consumed by darkness. The scream of rebel Sele fighters and the thunder of loyalist artillery drifted up from the battle-scarred streets below, a reminder of the long road ahead. But Jeffrey and Marek, a bond of blood and purpose connecting them, knew they would walk that road side by side no matter the cost. For in the end, it was not the might of warships or the power of doomsday weapons that would shape the destiny of worlds. It was the courage of individuals, the strength of an outstretched hand, and the unshakable belief that a better future was always worth fighting for. Jeffrey's fingers flew across the console, lines of code reflecting in his eyes. Behind him, the crack of plasma fire and the hiss of molten metal filled the air as Marek led his soldiers against Zaren's fanatics. The human gritted his teeth, a bead of sweat trickling down his brow. He had to shut this doomsday device down. With a final keystroke, the primary detonator went dark. Jeffrey allowed himself a fleeting moment of relief, but it was short-lived. "Hey, you fool," Zaren snarled, his voice rising above the din of battle. "Did you think it would be so easy?" The rogue general stabbed a claw at a secondary panel, a pulsing red light blinking to life. A failsafe, hidden even from the council. Only a manual override can stop it now. Jeffrey's blood ran cold. He scanned the room, taking in the entrenched Sele loyalists, the flickering energy shields. There was no way to reach the override without getting cut to pieces. Unless... "Marek," Jeffrey shouted over the comm, "I need a path to that override." The Sele commander unleashed a barrage of plasma, dropping two extremists. "There's too many of them. We can't punch through." Jeffrey looked at the override switch, then back at Marek. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. "I'll go. Someone has to stay behind. Trigger the override manually." "What? No!" Marek's voice was raw with emotion. "You'll be killed." "And if I don't, your entire planet dies." Jeffrey took a deep breath, his grip tightening on his rifle. "It's the only way. It's been an honor, Marek." The human made to charge forward, but a scaly hand clamped onto his shoulder. He turned to see Marek, eyes blazing with determination. "You don't get to play the martyr alone, human," the Sele growled. "We do this together." Jeffrey stared at his former enemy, seeing not a creature of scales and claws, but a brother in arms. He clasped Marek's hand, feeling the weight of their shared journey, the bond forged in blood and sacrifice. "Together, then." As one, they burst from cover, plasma bolts stitching the air around them. They wove and dodged, Marek's tail lashing out to send an extremist flying. Jeffrey snap-fired, his aim true, buying precious seconds. But for every Sele that fell, two more seemed to take their place. Plasma seared Jeffrey's armor, the heat seeping through to blister his skin. Beside him, Marek roared in pain as a bolt punched through his shoulder, ichor spraying. They fought on, an unstoppable force driven by sheer willpower. With a final desperate lunge, they reached the override switch. Marek slammed a claw down on the control. The failsafe died with a descending whine. The doomsday device was inert, the planet saved. But the cost... Jeffrey and Marek collapsed, their lifeblood pooling beneath them. Jeffrey coughed, tasting copper. He turned his head, meeting Marek's fading gaze. "We did it," the human whispered. "We saved them." "No, Jeffrey," Marek rasped. "You saved us, showed us a better way." Jeffrey's vision blurred, darkness creeping in at the edges. His thoughts drifted to the journey that had brought him here, the distrust and hatred that had melted away, replaced by understanding and respect. The strength of the human spirit, the capacity for change even in the most hardened of hearts. As the last breath left their bodies, a new era dawned for the Sele. An era of peace, of open hands instead of closed fists. And though Jeffrey and Marek would not live to see it, their legacy would endure, a shining beacon of what could be achieved when two races, once enemies, found common ground in the most unlikely of places. If you finish this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.